Well, hello, and thanks for watching another episode of ARFCOM News, your twice-weekly dose of the finest 2A propaganda. Remember that story about the illegal alien in Chicago who got his federal gun possession charge dismissed on 2A grounds? Well, Washington gun law did some digging into the probable cause affidavits to find out what that guy was actually accused of doing to get into that situation in the first place. So the police say Mr. Carbajal Flores and his neighbors had formed a neighborhood patrol during the mostly peaceful riots of 2020. Some other person gave him a gun to patrol with, and off he went. While he was out there patrolling, a car swerved toward him, but it didn't hit him or anything, so he fired off 7 rounds at the car. Then later that night, he also pointed the gun at another car as it drove past. Now, the witnesses could be wrong or lying, or the police could be wrong or lying. It wouldn't be the first time. But we can probably agree that firing warning shots at a car that came close as it passed you is probably not the optimal response. Oddly, Mr. Carbajal Flores was charged federally for having a gun as an illegal alien.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
But he was not charged for busting caps. Or for not having an FOID card. His possession of the gun broke so many laws that night, if what the cops say is true. Now don't get it twisted. I think he had a damn good reason to have that thing on him. And I still say, every adult has the right to carry a gun, even if he was a little jumpy.
You're pretty jumpy, Connor.
So I'm not saying he should have been charged for not having a permission slip to have the gun, but I do wonder why he wasn't charged. See, I think the reason he wasn't charged is the DA didn't want to defend those laws on constitutional grounds. What do you think?
Well, Pilgrim.
But hey, it would be impossible for us to produce quality 2A propaganda without sponsors, so let's pay some bills. Today's video is sponsored by TNVC.com, your source for good old-fashioned all-American night vision just like Mom used to make.
Do you like seeing the boogeyman hanging out with cryptids rolling dice in your front yard? I know I do. If you want to see all the crazy things happening right outside your house, check out TNVC.com.
I also have an update on that 3rd grader who sued her principal, superintendent, and the school's behavioral specialist for making her take off a hat just because they were scared of a picture of a rifle on it.
Oh, very bad, very bad.
Before class, the school's behavioral specialist noticed that Lil Ms. Based was wearing that hat and ran off to tell the principal. Now you heard right, this absolute eunuch didn't have the stones to say anything to the little girl's face. The principal decided to have the behavioral specialist call her dad to see if he could bring another hat. Dad told the principal where he could stick it, that he would not bring a hat, that nobody better lay a hand on her hat, and the First Amendment does not end at the schoolhouse gates. So the principal decided to make her put her hat in her locker. That prompted Dad to file a lawsuit, and last week, the judge summarily dismissed the case. Despite citing multiple similar cases affirming the right of the students to express firearm-related speech, the judge somehow still managed to side with the school, claiming it had the authority to violate the First Amendment rights of students simply because people might not like the content of their speech.
For God's sake, censor it! Censor it!
Now, to be clear, the judge cited multiple cases that ruled the opposite direction and still came down on the government side.
We've got a tar and feathering at noon.
So I guess dad and daughter could appeal, but there's really only so much money you can throw at a thing out of general principle. It's not as though any actual harm was done. What do you folks think? Would you appeal? The 97% is your typical police state enthusiast group masquerading as a moderate gun safety group composed of gun owners as well as non-gun owners. To promote this image, they post pics of supposed gun owners supporting gun control on social media.
I'll take anal bum cover for $7.
And we have long suspected they're just pulling random photos off the internet and attributing quotes that seem oddly dogmatic. But then they started posting photos of well-known real-world shooters and gun rights activists, and It doesn't appear that they got permission to use any of those photos. At least this time they didn't try to falsely attribute quotes to them, but using their likeness still implies support for gun control. As soon as they were called out, 97% deleted those posts, but the internet is full ever, and I sincerely hope their pants get sued all the way off.
They stole all my clothes.
You can't get 54% of Americans to agree on what color the sky is, but 54% of us agree Uncle Poopy Pants is doing a terrible job on gun control, according to a recent poll by The Economist and YouGov. James Carville said that gun control is a loser political issue and politicrators on either side of the aisle would be wise to take his advice. Now, to be sure, some of the people disapproving of Biden's efforts may disapprove because they want him to do a gun control even harder. But the fact remains that most people don't approve, and they don't like him on other less important issues either. Only 40% of Americans approve of him. Can he win the election with numbers like that? I don't know. I think the bigger question is actually whether he'll even be on the ballot come November. I'm no expert, but I think it's entirely possible the blue team's October surprise will be finding out who their presidential candidate is going to be. What do you think?
Politicians are the criminals.
Is Joe Biden really going to be around in November?
Getting sloppy and getting old.
Comment below. Back in February, a 3-judge panel of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals found Pennsylvania statutes denying adults under 21 years of age the right to carry a gun to be unconstitutional. The state asked the court for an en banc ruling, but last week that request was denied.
Denied. Just deny it. Denied. Just deny it.
So the decision stands as a legal precedent in the Third Circuit. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, this created a circuit split. That means it's very likely to be picked up by the Supreme Court. So on the one hand, there is a chance it could go the other way at the next level. On the other hand, whatever the ruling is, it will apply to the whole country, and I think the current court is very likely to come down on the light side of the force for this issue.
Fear is the path to the dark side.
It doesn't make a lick of difference to me whether the age of majority is 15 or 40. I'm good. And hey, there is a good argument that the age of adulthood should be raised to 21 or maybe even 25. But whatever that age is, I think it should apply to all adulting activities. Driving, working, signing contracts, voting, drinking, military service, all of it. You're either an adult with rights or you are still a child who needs his parents' permission to do grown-up things. For the state of Pennsylvania to argue that 18 to 20-year-old people were not considered to be part of the people mentioned in the Constitution is absolute madness.
Madness.
What do you folks think? Do adults under 21 have the right to carry a gun? Should the age of majority be raised? And now, for your moment of Zen. Hey friends, do you like pews and other pew-related things? Would you like to help us keep delivering you pure, uncut American pew propaganda at the low, low price of $3.50? We literally couldn't pay the bills without our sponsors, so do us a solid and get yourself something nice from them. You deserve it. I love you. Don't be scared, just read some words. Come on, a square dance with me. On a cold and rainy night in the ghetto. Another little baby cries in the dark in the ghetto.